Hello guys, welcome to Junior Fixal. Today we are going to perform cloud operations in Java Spring Boot. So what is Spring Boot? Spring Boot is just an open source backend framework based on Java that enables users to create backend microservices. So when you come here, we have DICE and a whole lot. It's a whole lot. These are just some of them. Yeah. So you can see, you can even go to next and you see the various applications that are built with Spring Boot. Okay, then let's head to start.spring.io to initialize a project. So when you get here, you choose Java. Then I don't know if you're familiar with Gradle or Goofies, but I think Maven is fine. Yeah. If you are familiar with Maven, you can go with Maven. In this tutorial, I'm going to use Maven and the Spring Boot version. So I'm going to use version 3.3.5 here. I think that's the LTS version as at the time recording the video. And this right here is your group name. That is the development team's name. I don't know, like it can be anything. So over here, I'm just going to say dev.fixal, and this artifact or the name is actually the project name or the application we're trying to build. So I have a simple to do front-end application that I want to build the backend for. So I'm going to say to do app. And then over here, I'm going to choose Jar, and the Java version or Java JDK version, I'm going to choose version 21 because that is the LTS version as at the time of recording the video. Okay, so I'm going to add some few dependencies here. I'll come here, then I'll hold control. I'm on Windows, so I'm going to hold control, then click on Spring Dev Tools, and then I'm going to add Lombok. Then I'll scroll down here, add Spring Web, and I'm going to use MongoDB for backend, so or the database. So you can just scroll down all the way to NoSQL, then add Spring Data MongoDB. Yeah, and I think that will be all it's supposed to be for. Yeah, we have DevTools, Lombok, Spring Web, then MongoDB. So I'll just scroll down, then generate this application. Okay, so I have this here. I'm going to open it, and like I said, I already have a front-end application that I'm going to test this with. So I will just come here. Just a task application, so this will be the backend for it. Okay, that is really simple. And since we are working in Java, I will advise you to use Java IDE. You can use Visual Studio Code, but I think it's advisable if you have a dedicated Java IDE. So over here, I'm just going to open this with IntelliJ. Yeah, and we have our application right here. So just like any other application, you just navigate to the source folder. You have main, then we have resources, then we have our. This is where we are going to do all our. In this folder, this is our package, right? And that's where we are going to do our coding stuff. And this is pom.xml that contains like all the configurations of our application. So like this is where we say this is what do you call it? Package.json in JavaScript. Yeah. So this will be your package.json in case you're using JavaScript. So these are our dependencies. We have our database, and we have our Spring Web, and then the dev tools, and also Lombok. Yeah, so we are good to go. So in case we want to add anything, if we want to add dependency, it's just as simple as that. You just come here, then we add dependency, just as we add a tag for that. Sorry. So when you are done, then you reload your Maven, and oh, I think I made a mistake here. All right. You reload it and everything is fine. Okay, so let's go to, this is our main class, and you know Java runs from a main class, so you have to it's just like a few lines of code, about 4 or so. So yeah, let's run our application and see what we get. Okay, so our application is running and it's failed. And the reason that it failed here, when you go up, you can see we are getting MongoDB error here because like we've not initialized it. Although we have added a package, but we do not have any instance of MongoDB in our application. So we just have to create a connection for MongoDB. So with that, we just have to go all the way to mongodb.com. Let's see. So go to mongodb.com, then sign in. Okay, so I've signed in successfully. I've come here, I've created a project, and I've named it project YouTube. To do, you can add a project. Adding a project doesn't require you anything, just that the name. You just have to add the project name. So you come here, you add a new project, just type the name, and that's all. So that's what I did here. I've not done anything different. Yeah. So when you come here, I do not have any cluster. So in MongoDB, a cluster is just a collection of databases. So which means in one application you can have multiple clusters, and in one cluster you can have multiple databases. So I'm coming here to create a cluster. Okay, so I'm going to choose the free version, which is actually enough for this tutorial. So if you are new to MongoDB, you can just add a payload sample data set, but it's not really necessary here. So I'm going to call this one task app. Okay, and you have to choose a region. So by default, Mongo will select a region that is closer to you. So I'm just going to keep this as it is right now, and I'm going to let me check if everything is okay. Yeah, so I'm going to create deployment. Okay, so we are here. I just created the cluster, and this is what I'm faced with here. So by default, the system allows you to access the MongoDB service that you've created from your current IP address. And obviously, you're not going to access this system from wherever you are right now as at the time that I'm recording the video, or the time that you're watching the video. This is a web service that we are going to create. So like you want people to access it from multiple locations, so you just have to allow that. So I'm going to create a database user, and this user is different from the user account that you create, the MongoDB account that you have. This is the access to MongoDB database, the database that you've created. So I'm going to say fixer, and I'm going to just say fixer 24, yeah, as the password, and I'm just going to create this. Then I have to choose a connection method. So I'm going to connect through drivers. So I'll select drivers, and I'm going to choose Java, and then the version, the current version. Yeah. So you can see here that task app is provisioning. So you can just hit OK or done. Then visit this place later on, or you can just wait for it to give you the connection string. Yeah, that is it. So we have the connection string here. I'll just copy it, then click done. If you do not see the connection string, you can just come here again, and this time you see the connection string. Okay, so that is all for MongoDB. And then like I said, I have to allow more people to access this application that we are creating from various endpoints, so or various IP addresses. So I'll come to network access. In case you want to add another user to the MongoDB database, you can just come to database access and add another user. So I'll come to add IP address, and I'll say allow access from anywhere. And this is just going to give me this 0.0.0.0 0. And yeah, so that is it. Let's head back to our IntelliJ application. So you can see this is pending, so I think it will be done very soon. So I'll come to resources here, then I'll come to application.properties. So this is just a configuration file for our application. So I'll just come here, then I'll say spring.data mongodb.uri. Okay, so then I add this. So this is okay. This is our username, the database username. and this is our password. In case you do not see it, sometimes you can see it like this. Let me show you. You can see this as this. You just have to replace the password with the actual password. So you just clean it and replace it with the actual password. Okay, let me see. Yeah, and over here, everything here is the cluster. Everything here after the add representing the cluster that you created. So I'm going to add a database name here. I'm going to say to do app. So the cluster name is task app, and the database name is to do app. So it's just a path. I've just added a path here, and that is to do app. So that will be the database name. Okay, so everything is fine. We are good. So I'm coming here to. So let's reload the application once again and see if we get any errors. Okay, so our application is running and we did not get any error. You can see monitor thread successfully, MongoDB cluster and all that here. So everything is fine. So and our application is running on port 8080. So I'll just come here, then I'll say localhost 8080. Okay, and we can see we have this white label error page here, meaning we've not mapped anything to it. In fact, the system doesn't know what we are trying to do here, or that it knows it's running on port 8080, but we are not presenting anything to this very part. So let's go to our application. I'm going to create a folder here, and in Java, folders are packages. Folders are called packages. So in case you are dealing with multiple entities, so maybe you can have folders, you can have users and all that, you might want to create packages for each of these entities. So I'll come here, then add new. Make sure you are in the package, the main package, sorry, or in the main folder of your application, not the root folder, this one here, the dov.fixout.todo app, whatever name that you choose for it, make sure you are there. Then you add package. So I'm going to call this to do, right? Or I can just say to do. So I have a package here. I'm going to create a class here. So I'm going to call this to do. So this is just going to be the main class for our to do entity. So I'm going to say this is a document, right? And the collection name here, I'm going to call this to do's, and I'm going to say this is data, and I'm going to allow all as constructor, then no as constructor. Then I'll come here. All these things are coming from Lombok. So what Lombok does is it gives us some boilerplate for some things that we want to do. So instead of importing these or writing codes for each of the things that we've imported here, it just gives us this boilerplate. So I'm going to say private object ID, and this is equal to new object ID. Okay, and I'm going to say private string IDD. Yeah, so this one over here is an object. This is actually the ID that the system knows. So I'm going to annotate this as an ID. So I'll say ID. Okay, so the system knows that this one here, this ID here, is the ID or the primary key for the entity that we are trying to create here. Okay, and we are going to use this one later, and I think I will explain along the way. So our to-do app is going to have a title, so I'm going to say private string title, and I'm going to duplicate this for some time, yeah. And I'm going to say task. That will be the description of the task itself, and then we will have this I'm going to say this is boolean, so it's completed. I'm going to call this is completed. So this will indicate whether the task has been completed or not. And then I'm going to say this is start, and this will be the string of the date instance that we will pick from the front end. And I'm going to say end. And of course, in the application, we don't want to render all the to-do or the tasks in the database to one particular user, or a user to one user. So we want to render the user's task, or the task that a user has created. So I'm going to say, so if we, okay, so I'm going to say this user ID. Sorry. So if we were to save the user's data in the database, then over here we could say private user, then we give it an object name or something like that, or let's say user, right? So this means the user here is just an instance of an instance from the user class. Then we say document reference. And if you are familiar with MongoDB, I think this is not anything different. Okay, so since we are not saving the user's instance, we're only going to take the user's ID. I want this application to be as simple as that. Okay, and there is one thing that I want to do here. I'm going to say at last modified date, I want to enable the time that we modified something like this, or the data. So I'm going to say at last modified date, and I'm going to say private date. I need to import this date updated up. Okay, so once I do this, meaning the system is going to keep timestamp for any time we modify some this payload or the data, right? So I will come to our main class here, then say this enable Mongo auditing. So we do not actually have to send this to the database ourselves. We just have to send the data that we want, and the system will, once we've enabled the auditing, we're just going to send this to the database. Okay, so I'm going to create an interface, and this interface I'm going to call it to-do repository. So the repository is just going to extend the MongoDB classes, the MongoDB class, so we can have the functions or the methods in MongoDB. So if you are familiar with MongoDB, you have .find all, we have the find by ID, delete by ID, and all those stuff. So we are going to extend this interface with the MongoDB class so we can have these functions. And I'm going to hit OK, and then I have to annotate this as a repository. And I'm going to say extend Mongo repository. Okay, so that is then I'm going to say of a to-do, and it's going to take the to-do ID object. Okay, so let me see, to-do comma, then I should have object ID here. Okay. Alright, so that is all for now here. We'll come back to this very far. Okay, so let's create our class, our service class. I'm going to say to do service. Okay, so this one is a class, not an interface, so take note. So I'm going to annotate this as well, so I'm going to say a service. Okay, so I'm going to create an instance of the repository that we created. I'm going to say private to-do repository, to-do repository. And in order for the system not to force us to create what do you call it, a constructor, we are just going to say auto-wired. Alright, so over here I'm going to create a function or a method, if you want to call it. I'm going to say public, and this is going to return lists. I have to import list of to do. I'm going to say fetch or get all to do's, get all to do's. Okay, then I'm going to say return to do repository dot find all. Okay, so this is one endpoint. We've just created an endpoint just like that. So I'm going to create another one. I'm going to say public, and take note, anytime that you are dealing with ID, anytime that you are dealing with object ID, you have to make the return statement optional, because it can be that it can happen that the ID that you are trying to reference in the database doesn't exist for any data. So I'm going to say optional to do that, is in case we find something like that. So I'm going to say get one to do, and this is going to take object ID, object ID, then I'm going to return I'm going to say to do repository dot find by ID of our ID here. Okay, so that's another endpoint. So I'm going to say public, and then we have to create one. So I'm going to say to do, and create. I'm going to say create one to do, and over here I'm going to pass in some argument here. So I'm going to say string, and that is basically the properties of the to-do class. These ones we are going to pass in this argument. So I'll come here and I'll say string title, I'll say string task, then boolean is completed, then I don't know why I keep typing string like that. String start, string end, string user ID. Okay, so that's as simple as that. So I'm going to say to do. So I want to create an instance of the to do that we have. So I'm going to say to do is equal to new to do of this title task is completed, then we have start, and then we have the user ID. So the start and the end is actually the time you're going to start the task and the time you're going to end. So I'm getting an error here, and like I said, you were supposed to use a dedicated Java ID for this, because I've not created a constructor for this. So when I say new, meaning I'm trying to refer to reference the constructor that I've created. I've not created any constructor, so I'll just come here over by it and say create constructor, and this is that we have this one here. So I'm just okay. I will just come here and I'll say this dot title is equal to title. I'm just going to duplicate this for some time. Good on. Okay. Where am I? Here. I'm going to duplicate this. So this is task, and then is completed. So I just hold Control D. I don't know if this is just basic stuff in Visual Studio Code. So Control D to select. Just say start, and okay, then the user ID. Okay, so over here, right, you see I added something like IDD. So this one here, the ID that we are working with here is an object. It's not a string, but we want to get it in the form of a string, so we can work with it in the front end or in the front end. So I'll come here, then I'll just say this dot idd is equal to this dot id dot to her string. Okay, so that is why I initialized it. So over here the system will create this as an object, then so after getting the object I will just say assign the head string or the header string of the object that you have to this idd. So to us, this is what we are going to use, this one here, or the GUI, that is what we are going to use. Okay, so I'll head back to the class, the service again, and you can see now we do not have the error. Okay, so I'll say to do repository dot insert this to do that we've created. So we're just going to save this. Then after that we're going to return the to do. Okay, that is really simple. And then I'm going to say, what do we do first? I'm going to delete a to do, so I'm going to say public, and this is, I'm going to make this a boolean method, so I'm going to say boolean delete one to do, and this is also going to take object id, sorry, id. So by default I'm going to return false. Okay, so I'm going to say optional to do of I'm going to say current to do is equal to do repository dot find by id of the id that we have here. Okay, and then we check if the to do exists. So you see current to do dot is present, meaning if it exists, then we say to do repository dot delete, or you can see over here we have delete by id. You can just pass in the id, so you can just say delete, then over here you delete the entity, you say current to do dot get whatever to do that we had there, I want to delete it. Then I'll say return, sorry, I just typed some gibberish there, sorry, return true. Okay, so we've deleted the to do like that. So I'm just going to copy this, since update and delete have something in common, I'm just going to maintain that. So I'll say public, this one is going to be optional to do, and I'm going to say update one to do, and this one is going to take an object id and payload as well. So I'm going to copy everything that we had here. Okay, then paste it here. So just like we did earlier on, I'm going to check if the to do exists. If it exists, then okay, I'm not going to delete anything. I'll just say to do is equal to current to do dot get. I want to assign the current to do to this one. Now we know that the current to do exists, because before we get here it means it exists. So I'm going to say we want to update a field only when the user has typed in something for that particular field. So I'm going to say if title is not now, then I'll say to do dot set title, or set title of the title that we typed from the payload. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate this, and I'm going to check for task. So you just have to make sure you change this one as well, set task, and then it's completed. It's completed. To do dot set is completed. Start. Let's say set start. End. Set end. And I'm going to duplicate it once more. And I don't know if it can happen like this, but it's just for demonstration purpose, let me just add it. So in case the user ID is changed, which is very unlikely, but we just have to add it. Okay, so if it happens like that, then we save the to do. Just make sure that this if statement here, they are separate ones. You do not have to bring else there. So I will just say to do repository dot save to do. Okay, so what am I going to return here? I'm just going to say optional dot empty. I don't want to return anything, but it sorry. Okay, just an empty object of the to do that we just updated. I don't want to return anything. And one thing that you have to notice is that over here, right? Let me just bring this one down. You can see we are returning all the to-dos in the database, which is really not ideal in for user experience, because I do not want to see someone's tags that the person has created. So we have to render the tags based on the user that has logged into the system. So I'll come to the to-do repository here. Then I'll say optional lists, and like I said, anytime that you are dealing with ID, you have to make it optional. So I'm going to say to do, then I'll say find to do by user ID. Yeah, by user ID. Then I'll say string ID. So this is not part of the functions or the methods in this repository. We're just adding it. So we are extending. This is a custom method that we are creating, and don't forget that we are only extending this. So this one is for us, but the system will know what we are trying to do. So we just come here, and then we say, so just beneath this, I'll just duplicate this. I'll say this public, so this one will be optional. Okay, so get user, I'll just say get user to do's, and then optional list of to do. Then I'll say return this. So in the repository now we have a method called find this. Yeah. Then I have to add the user ID, which I haven't created yet. So I will just come here and I see object. Sorry, this is not object ID. This is just a string. Okay. So we are good to go. We just have to create our route. So I'll come here, then create a new class. I'm going to say to do controller. Okay, so I'll just annotate this as REST controller, and I have to allow course origin. If you're familiar with web development, you know what course origin does. So yeah, and I'm going to say at requests mapping, meaning this time the application should when we go to this particular endpoint, this is what we are supposed to see. I mean, if you are, yeah, this is routing, yeah. So I'm going to say API slash version 2, or you can just give it any name. This is just a string, it can be any name. Then we say to-dos. Okay. So I will create an instance of the classes that we, the services that we created. So I will just say private to-do service, to-do service. And just like we did, I'm going to say auto-wired. So I'm going to say public response entity. So we want a response from the server, so we're going to say it should return to us list of to-dos. We have to, so I'm going to say fetch to-dos. So I'm going to say return new response entity of list of to-dos. Then we say the to-do service dot get all to-dos. Then we have to add http status code. So this is http status code dot OK. Alright, so I am going to create another class here, or another method, and this is also going to be response entity of optional lists of to-do, and I'm going to say fetch user to-dos. I'm going to say string user ID, and this is going to be a part variable because we are going to take this from the params. So I'm going to say part variable, and if that is the case, then I'll say this. Okay, I'll say get mapping. So this is a get route, and this one too I have to add get mapping. Sorry. Meaning when we come here, right? When we come here, we are supposed to route to this very class that of this method that we've created here. We can't just leave this one like that because it will be conflicting with this. So we want to say when we go to get mapping, we want to go to user. Then we have to add our dynamic ID from the param. So I'm going to say this. And this user ID must be the same spelling as this one. Okay. So I have to come here, then I'll say return new response entity of optional. The reason it's optional is because the user ID may not exist. So I will say list of to do, then we are returning the to do service that get user to do's of this user ID, then we add the http status of OK. Alright, so we have to get one to do, so we get, I'll say get mapping of this ID. Yeah, this time we want to get one to do, just single to do. So I will say public response, response entity optional to do. I'll say fetch to do. And this is also going to take a part variable because the ID will be taken from the param. And take note that this one, there is another part here, user, then this one. Okay. And this is going to be the object ID. And we're going to say ID. So I'm going to return a new response entity. The reason it's optional is because the ID may not be associated to any to-do in the database. To-do, then I'll say to-do service, get one to-do of ID. Then we have to add our HTTP status code of OK. Then we have to delete a to-do. So I'm going to say at get, or let me see, delete mapping. So it will also take an ID okay, so public and the response entity. Okay, so this time I'm going to return just a string because we can't return the ID, the object that has been deleted from the database. String, then I'm going to say delete to do, and it's also going to take a path variable of an object ID. Then we say boolean is deleted. Don't forget that in our to-do service, the delete method returns a boolean value. This one. Okay, so we want to check if the item has been deleted. Boolean is deleted is equal to do service the delete one to do of this to do. You see, if it's deleted, then we return response entity dot OK. I'll say to do or to do deleted successfully. If that's not the case, then I have to return let me copy this and say to do not found. So this one I'm going to say this that the status of HTTP status code dot not found. Then this one I'll just say body. Okay. So that is 404, yeah. So let's create a to-do. So I'm going to say public response entity of to-do. I'm just going to return a to-do. So I'm going to say create to-do, and this time we are going to take payload. So I'm going to say request body. So instead of path variable, we are going to take a request body, and the request body, we know how request body looks like. It's an object of two value pairs, like a key and a value, right? So I'm going to say map string, and this is also string. The key is string, and the value is also string. You give your variable a name, so I'm going to call it payload. So I'm going to say string title is equal to payload dot get, so the key name, right, the name of the key. So I'm going to say title. So from our payload, the one with the key that is called title is the one that we are trying to refer to here. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to say task, and this is okay, I'm going to say is completed, and then this is start, this is end. I'm going to duplicate this once again, and then I'm going to say this is user ID. user ID, and this is supposed to be boolean. Don't forget it was a boolean. And since we are getting it from an object in the front end, it wants us to get the boolean value instead of the string value. So I have to wrap this with that. So I'm going to say return new response entity of to do, then to do service dot create one to do of what we have our title, we have the task, we have this completed, we have start, we have end, then user ID, then we say http status code dot created. Okay, so that is fine. So what's left right now is to update it to do, and I'm going to say public response entity, and just like we did for the delete, I'm also going to return a string here. I'm going to say update to do, and this is also going to take a part variable and a request body. So I'm going to say part variable of object ID. Don't forget we said they should take an object ID from our to-do service here, and we come here, we are passing the ID before this one. So these ones will come from the payload, and this is from the params. So I'm going to say this is an ID, and this is the rest, so from the request body, and map string, and this is going to be string as well, and then a variable name. You can just see body payload, and I think I'm just going to copy this. We're going to need it, so I'm going to say this. Okay, and then over here I'm going to say to do service dot, sorry, if you can write down the to do service dot update one to do of title of task. No, this was supposed, the ID is supposed to come first. The ID, the task, then is completed, then start, and then the user ID. Sorry, user ID. Okay, so I'm going to say return response entity. I'm going to say response entity dot okay. So I'm going to say to do deleted successfully. Okay, so I think that will be all. I don't know. Okay, so there's one thing that I forgot to add here. I didn't add any route, so this is going to be a put mapping, and it's going to take ID from the params, and make sure the ID is the same here. And then I think they create you. I didn't add anything, so I'm going to say add post mapping. So over here I want to route to new. So when I go to new, then I do this. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this application to see if we get any errors. Okay, so this is running fine. Everything is fine here. Okay, so I am going to set up Postman, right? Postman collection to test these endpoints out. we've created here. Alright, I'll get back to you guys later on. I'm going to pause the video and do that and get back to you guys. Okay, so we are here, right? So this is localhost 8080 to do new, and just know that when we route it this way, then we are referring to this one, the post mapping here. Okay, alright, so let me try to send this to see if everything is fine. Okay, so method not allowed. I think we are getting this error here. Let's look into it together. What is the problem? Okay, and of course I made a typo here. This is supposed to be post mapping, not put mapping. So let's refresh this. Okay, so I think it has refreshed. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so it worked. So this is the IDD that I was referring to. So we have our, this is the ID, and of course, obviously, we can't use this something like this in the front end. When we want to assign param variable, we can't use that. So it better we converted it to this one. So that's what we have here. And then the user one, and just as I said, this is the updated yeah. So I'm going to add another one here. So I'm going to say to do 2. Okay. So I'm going to add that. Then I'm going to add another one for user 2. And this is to do 3. And then to do 3. Okay. So yeah, I've added that one too. So let's get all the to-dos and see. Okay. So now we have it. So now when we go to our browser, let me see. When we go to our browser, then we go to this. It should give us our to-dos. Let me see this. Yeah, these are our to-dos. And we do not get any error, right? So that is fine. Let's I want to update a to-do. So I will just come here, then select one ID. So let me just select the to-do 2 and go to update, and then I'll change the title to to-do B, then this one to this, then I'll change the is completed to that, to true. And like I said, in most cases the user might not want to update everything, so you have to check only when the user has added something or has typed in something for that particular field before you update it. So I'm going to do this. Okay, to do updated successfully. So let's get one to do and see what we have. So get one to, this is get, or sorry, I do not have gets one. So let me just try to duplicate this. Okay. So get one, and over here I'm just going to copy it. Okay, so I'm just adding this, and you can see it has changed from to do 2 to do B. This one here, right? And it's completed is now true. Okay, so let's try to fetch a user's to do. So get user task. So we want to get all the to-dos for user 1. So we have 3 to-dos so far. So if we get 3 to-dos right now, I'm going to freak out. Okay, we have 2. Alright, so these all belong to user 1. And don't forget the route. This is user, then user 1. If I change it to user 2, we are supposed to get only 1 because user 2 only has 1 to do. Okay, so let's delete it to do. Okay, so to do, then delete. I'm going to do this, and it should delete. To do deleted successfully. So let's get all the to-dos and see the number of to-dos we have so far. Okay, now we have two, one for user 2 and one for user 1. So I think that is all for the API or the crowd operation. So I have this front-end application and I would like to integrate this in the app. So I will just come here. So I'll, okay, so first of all, I want to host this. I want to go through the hosting process of this very application that we've created here. So I'll come here, then try to push this code to GitHub, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. So I'll just say git init. Sorry. Okay, and then what do I have here? Git add. Then try to add this. Git add this. I want to add this. Okay, so let me try this. So basically what I'm doing is trying to push this to GitHub, and I think I do not have to worry you guys with that. I'll do that and get back to you guys later. Okay, so I've pushed my code to GitHub, and we are going to host it on Render. And Render doesn't actually allow us to host Java APIs directly. So what we have to do is to create a Docker file, right? We have to create a Docker file. Then try to create an image. So if you want to keep environment variables, it's just the same process as you using environment variables in any other language. But with that, you have to build your application. You have to build the Docker image before you can upload the image to Render. But if you are not using environment variables, you just have to upload the code to GitHub, then Render will build the application on their server. So I'll just come to the main folder here, the root folder, right? This is the root folder. Let me see. Yeah. Then try to add a new file. I would add a Docker file. So if you went through the same process with me, then it means you are using the Java version 21, and then you just have to copy this code and paste it there. Here. This very code, and I think I'll share it with you. Yeah, so you have access to this. Okay, so if you are using version 23 or 17, you just have to find the image or the JDK image for this, and I think you are fine. You are good to go. So I have to stop our application here. It's still running. Now I have to build it. So I'll come to the Maven here. This is one of the reasons you have to use Java IDE. So you come to Lifecycle, then you come to Package, then you click here, and it's just going to build our application for us. Okay, so we are getting this error here, and I think sometimes it happens like that. You just have to run it again. Okay, so our application is being built. It's being built, sorry, and then we just have to wait for it for some time. Okay, so you can see here build success. So when you come to our target folder here, we have this snapshot here, right? So it depends on the name that you gave your file, right? Over here, my file name is to-do app. So I'll just come to my Docker file here, then change this to do app. So let me see where I have to do. I'll change it to do app. In fact, it's supposed to be the same name as this one, to do app.001 snapshot.jar. Okay, so that is fine. Alright then. Then we just have to test to see if everything is working correctly for the jar file that we created. So I'll come here, then paste in this. So Java jar to do app, and it's supposed to be the same name as your application. Unable to access the Java file. Okay. So that is fine. It might be that we've made some. Okay, so we have to go to the target. We are right now. We are in the root folder. We have to go to the target folder. Okay, so we have to go there, then run this. Okay, so our application is running, and make sure you just have to notice that we are not running it here. The application itself is not running. Now we are running the jar file we created. So let's try one endpoint to see if it's working. Okay, so it's working, but we are not getting the data. Let's look into it. Okay, so let me see. Let me run it once again. Okay. Okay, so this time it worked. I just had to rerun it. Sometimes it does that. Sometimes you just have to rebuild the jar file that you created. Yeah, it just messy like that. Sometimes it happens like that. So I've shared the version. So by default, the application that you create, although you chose version 21 for the package, but the system will be using the higher version or the newer version that you have installed in your system. So you just have to let me see, I got some message from Git regarding that I've exposed an ID, and I think I'm okay with it. Okay, so yeah, so when it happens like that, sometimes you have to come here, then create a configuration. You come here, then let's say you want to add a new configuration like this. Then you choose the version that you want for yourself. So you can choose version 21. You can see I have 23, I have 21, but I want 21. So you want to be specific, and you just have to choose this one. Okay. Then you choose your main class, which is going to be the to-do application. That's the main class. Yeah. Okay. So, but we do not need it. I don't need any configuration right now. I just wanted to show you guys how you can handle that. So I'll just come to my code here. I'll just stop this from running. Then we push whatever I had so far. Oh my goodness, I hate this. Done. GitHub git comments added target file. Okay, so git push. And it should push it. Okay, so fine. I'm going to render. So render.com. And when you go, you just have to create an account. Then you just log in. So I'm going to log in with my GitHub account. But I think that is the easiest way. Then I'm going to create a new web service here. And I'm going to select this. Select the repository that is linked to your project. You do not have to follow everything that I'm doing. Select the one that is linked to your project. So the client folder just contains JavaScript files. So I'm just going to select the backend. I'm going to pick Docker file here. Then I'm going to choose the free version. Okay. Then I think I am good to go. I do not have any environment variable, so I'm just going to deploy the web service. And it's going to take some time to load the Docker file, so you have to wait. So just the usual, I'll meet you guys later on. So yeah, we are live, and as you can see here, your service is live. Yeah, we are live. So that is all. It has deployed our service. So when I come here, then claim this, it's supposed to give me the same result, right? Yeah. So we have the same result. So let me go to my front-end application here. Then okay, so we are done. We are done with this API stuff, the backend stuff. We are done with everything here. I'm not sure if we come here again. I just have to close this. Okay, and then I'll come to the client side here. Then I'm going to open this with Visual Studio Code. Sorry. Okay, so I have my .env here, and I've created these ones inside, and I'm using click to control my user state, right? I'm using click for user state management. So this is my hook, and I'm fetching from the API directly. This one here. Okay. All right, and then I have, these are the basic stuff that I've written here. It's not anything so complex. Then there's new here. This is where you add new to do. This is a function for adding, and this is for updating. So I'm handling it here. If there is a title, then update it. If not, just replace it with the current title that we have. And then it's just some basic stuff. It's not anything. And this is where I'm rendering all the to do. So I want to run this so you guys see what I have so far. So I'm going to say npm run dev. Okay, and then this is going to run on localhost 3000. So yeah, sure. Localhost 3000. No, not localhost 3000. It's not 3000. This doesn't run. Each application do not run on localhost 3000. Okay, so we do not have any task, so I just have to create one here. So when I come here, I'll just say task 1, and task 1 details. Then I choose the date that I'm starting this, the date and the time. Then I choose what? Okay. Then I create. Alright, so we've added a task. I'm going to add another one. So that one was starting at 10:15, right? So I'll see task 2 details, and I'm going to start this at 10:20. Oh, let's see. 10:20, yeah. And then I'm going to do this, and this one is going to be 10:25. Okay. All right. So I think my sorting is not working properly. So this one rather is supposed to come first. The one that is starting earlier is supposed to come first, and so I'll come to my hook here and make this small change. Okay, so this one is starting first. This one is starting before this, so this one's supposed to come first. That is how I've made it. And then you can also update this if you want to update task 1 detail. Okay, let's see this. Okay, I have task 1 here. Okay, so task 2 is starting at 10:20. Okay. It worked. All right. So I think that will be all, and this is delete. Let me see, and it's deleted. All right, everything is fine now. Okay, so we are good. I've already deployed this side to Netlify, and let me see what we have here for our types. So when I come to Netlify, okay, so I have this site here, so I'll just okay, so it's the same username, right? It's the same username that I use, so it's saying this. So if I log in with another username, I think I'm not going to see this. Yeah. So that will be all for today. Thank you guys for being with me all this time, and hope to catch you guys on the next tutorial. Stay tuned. Bye.